The Battlefield 1 Alpha is finally here, and Jeff and you and I have had a chance to play it a little bit. What are your impressions so far? Obviously, like the map is Conquest, it's classic Battlefield, so it doesn't feel like ridiculously brand new, but it's a new setting with new weapons. So
the map and the kind of the pace of everything, the weapons, I think it feels like Battlefield, but at the same time, it felt refreshingly different as well.
Yeah, I think for the Battlefield fans, there's definitely like all the basics are there, but they are a little bit different this time. You know, like destructibility feels like it's really tuned up as opposed to Battlefield 3 and 4. You know, like a lot of fans like me kind of miss being able to raise buildings and, you know, like kind of recreate the battlefield and take away some advantages infantry have when they're housed up in a building and stuff.
For sure. And the landscape of the map too as well. I guess I can't really say how it compared specifically to like Battlefield 4 or anything, but there were a lot of, you know, hills and stuff, and there was enough to where if I was approaching, you know, a little village where the next flag was, there was still enough that you could kind of weave in and out, and of course they have the trenches and stuff like that.
Yeah, and some of the trenches kind of reminded me of the Battlefield 1943 when they reimagined some of the classic maps where it just gives infantry a little bit more cover from vehicles and stuff, which is nice to have when you're moving in. You don't have to pop smokes all the time. One of the other things I noticed, the weather makes a huge difference in this game. Yeah, I don't know if you were able to play a map with and without of the fog, but the fog of war is real. Like, it completely takes away that long game where you can set up on a hill and just lob shells from a tank to crush the opposition at a certain flag.
I think shooter fans are used to, you know, like rain will just be a simple effect that you kind of notice a little in the foreground, or they'll like splash a little water on your camera, but like this completely changes, you know, how you're approaching different points and kind of the entire feel of battle, and also, you know, what character classes you're choosing and stuff, and you know how long you're gonna try and attack people from.
Yeah, the sniper, the scout class is definitely at a disadvantage when the heavy fog rolls in. You're probably gonna have to be really smart about where you set up to use that class. And that's not the only class that's back this time. Obviously, the assault class is back, the medic is back, the support's back, but it all is a little different because you notice I didn't mention one class.
Yeah, the engineer.
Yeah, the engineer has been dissolved, I guess, because of the way war was back in World War I. You know, the tanks were really rudimentary. They didn't have RPGs to take out tanks and whatnot. So they've kind of given the assault class a lot of the anti-vehicle weapons, which you have a grenade and then you have like this kind of one-shot rifle that you have a few shells for that can do some heavy damage to tanks.
And that was really the first thing that I looked at, you know, after dying a couple times and, you know, going up against the new tanks, which are really much faster than I was expecting. You know, the first thing I thought was, okay, which class is the one that has the RPG? And I was like, wait a minute, they didn't even have RPGs. And so I didn't mess around too much with the assault, and I really felt I was being terrorized at some points by, you know, the vehicles. So it will be interesting to see, you know, how those play out. I'm sure it's much more balanced than what I was experiencing. But yeah, my first impression of the vehicles they were a lot faster than I was expecting, and they kind of ended up being more important in you know, like different skirmishes over the points than I was kind of used to. You know?
They have a couple different kinds of tanks. They have those little one-man tanks, which are really fast, but you can take those out pretty effectively from behind. But then there's some of the bigger, like the land tank. That's this huge thing that fits like 5 people in.
It's like a clown car.
Yeah, it really is.
But how did you feel? I had just jumped into a random squad, and my squad wasn't very good. We weren't really sticking together. But how do you feel that squad play is working so far in Battlefield?
Well, I like what they're doing. You're going to notice as you play through the maps that you get rewarded like double or triple, it feels like, from what you would normally do in a Battlefield game if you're following squad orders in a timely fashion.
Okay.
If your squad leader points to a flag to capture and you guys move in, you're going to get an extra bonus of like 200 points plus whatever you get for the regular capture.
Cool.
Like 500. So you get these big bonuses when you're playing as a group, but I haven't felt that the closed alpha community has really grasped onto that yet, because I've been in a lot of squads where I'm just hitting the Q button, the comma rows, and saying like, what's our objective? Like, let's get these extra points. They're free.
Yeah.
All you have to do is point at the thing we're right next to.
Sure.
And it's free points.
Yeah.
And I don't think the people have grasped that yet. And that's always kind of been the Battlefield challenge, right? You know, like so many people are preconditioned from years of playing Quake and Call of Duty that you just get out there and run around, and like Battlefield is at its best when you're with a well-oiled machine of a squad.
Definitely.
And I'm curious to see how that squad dynamic plays with the way they've tweaked the classes. Like, one thing I noticed with the medic, you're not going to be able to stand toe-to-toe like when you walk into a building with the assault class. Your gun fires a little slower. It's still an assault rifle, but it's more like the DMRs that you were playing with in Battlefield 4, where it takes longer between the shots. It's more of a medium-range weapon.
Sure.
So as a medic, you're not always going to want to be on that front line. You're going to want to roll with an assault class, so you can heal them and take your shots at a distance. And one of the guns has a really cool scope, so that does encourage you to stay a little bit further behind. So anything else stuck out to you as you played through?
I have questions about the behemoth, the giant zeppelins that you can use. In my experience, the one time that we kind of had control over one, they had the fog over the entire map, so that kind of completely limited the use of it. You get in the giant gun and you look down on a capture point and you just can't see anything.
Yeah.
But it was cool the way that it functioned as a spawn point. And you could just kind of run around on the top and then pick where you were going to go and jump down and just parachute directly onto
that seems like its most effective use at this point. I'd agree. Like, right now, to me, I haven't spent a lot of time examining how it's changed battles. I haven't noticed tide shift completely yet, but it feels like, every Battlefield game seems to have some gimmick that EA puts a marketing name behind, like Levolution. The map's going to completely change when this one instance occurs. It's kind of has that marketing feel to me right now. I want to spend a little more time with the Behemoth to figure out how is it really going to affect battles and when does it come in, when does it... I think they're still tweaking that stuff as we work through the closed beta and into alpha, or into beta. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah,
it didn't crash into any villages while I was playing, so we're still waiting to see how that shapes out. But
and obviously, this being Battlefield 1, we have an entirely new World War to experience. There's a lot different weapons. What have you noticed that kind of feels distinct from other Battlefield games?
The kind of melee weapons were the first thing that stuck out, and I didn't really get my head around using them too much, but I did like the ability to charge at characters.
Yeah, the bayonet charge can be super effective just to close that gap when you see a room and you're a little too close to pull up your iron sights.
Yeah.
That's a really cool effect.
Yeah.
Did you walk through any gas?
That's the other one too. Yeah, the gas mask should be an interesting kind of component because it definitely has, the pros. Obviously, you don't die from the mustard cloud gas, but then it also completely limits your vision, and you can't use iron sights, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting trade-off to see what teams really roll with if they go with gas, because everybody has a gas mask. That's the thing. Like, so you're not really catching a guy by surprise. It's just like you can do a little bit of damage when they breathe it while they put on that gas mask.
You can kind of influence whether they're going to have compromised sight or not.
Exactly. Obviously, the tanks are very different. The big tanks are slow, and I noticed like the planes are much more. The speed fits the setting a lot better than I feel like. Sometimes the jets seemed a little fast in Battlefield 4, and I really feel like you can take aim at these things that are made out of balsa wood and do some damage with the assault rifle. Not going to take them down every time. There's still anti-air guns that are best for that. But
plenty of people had said that they've kind of gotten sick of the modern or futuristic setting, and I like that we won't have remote controlled video screens and all the kind of gadgets. Like they can come up with interesting gameplay mechanics around them, but there is something nice about kind of feeling like you're going back to basics.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing when you look at this sea of science fiction hero shooters that are out there right now. One thing you can say definitely about Battlefield 1 is it stands on its own.
Yeah, for sure.